have a special guest with me, Jeff Kramer. And so we're going to talk more about why he is here and how his story has to relate to being unhackable. And so I am going to pull up here, make sure that I'm live. And I see one person watching. If you would be so kind, for those of you that are watching here, we're on different platforms, but if you could just comment down below, let me know where you're watching from, and we're going to get cranking on our conversation. All right, I have my first comment here coming in. So someone says, good morning. I don't know who you are, not a name on there, but let me know your name, where you're watching from, and we're going to talk about perfectionism today. And I think, an expert on perfectionism. I don't know. So if they told me, Jeff, if you write a book, you become an expert. So there you are.
Scary thought.
You are the expert on perfectionism. And I was telling Jeff before we went live today that I am a recovering perfectionist and thankful that I've made it past most of the impact of perfectionism and how to use. I think there's a way of utilizing that experience for good, for positive things. And I know you've written a book, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But good morning, Linda. It's good to have you on here. Hey, Tree. I see now that you are watching from Wisconsin. We've got them watching from South Carolina. And Jeff, tell me where you're from.
I am in Arizona right now. We're living in Yuma.
Okay.
So if you know kind of where Arizona sits, Yuma is way down in the far southwest corner. We're actually south of California and east of Mexico here. Kind of a strange little quirk in the geography.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you know or not, but we are taking a book tour to Arizona in April.
Saw that.
So
We snatched up a copy of Kira's book for our granddaughter this past Christmas. So
awesome.
We're going to try to get her out to see Kira on the tour.
Well, great. That is awesome. So Kira is, of course, we're very proud of her. Good morning, Joan. I'm just greeting some people here. If you are connecting with us this morning, Yuma is 3.5 hours from Tucson. So we got someone.
Yes, it is. I'm a Tucson boy, born and raised.
Awesome. Awesome. And just go ahead, all of our viewers, go ahead and tag somebody on your list that's a perfectionist. And share it to their feed, on your feed, and let's get this message out there today. We're going to spend a little bit of time just talking about perfectionism, and I believe that you have created a resource called the Perfection Paradox.
Right.
And we're going to let the viewers know how to get a hold of that today. And so we just want to go ahead and get into this conversation. Jeff, I just want to start out. I know that every book has a story behind it, and every message, there's a journey that you've taken. And so why don't you just take some time and just tell us about what got you to the place of writing a book on perfectionism?
Wow. Yeah, so I guess I've struggled with perfectionism pretty much my whole life. And I truly believe that it is a part of your personality, right? You definitely acquire more perfectionistic traits over life because of your life experiences. But I think if you're inclined toward it, you're inclined toward it. Mm-hmm. And those experiences, they just reinforce and enhance that. And where I think the realization for me that I needed to do this book was actually we share a coach in Carrie Oberbrunner. Mm-hmm. And I was actually on a group coaching call with Carrie, September 23rd, 2014. Never forget the date. And Carrie kind of brought it to life. I was really struggling with how to move forward in life. with things that I wanted to accomplish, and Carrie just kind of worked through it with me, and what came out was um, this addiction to being perfect, or else it couldn't happen. It
Mm,
wasn't good enough. That was actually the phrase that came out of it, was good is good enough.
mm.
So
Well,
this whole
let
idea
me
of
let me just interrupt you right there, because that's a powerful term. Addicted to perfectionism.
mhm.
Addicted. Talk to me about that, because there's people here that struggle with perfectionism, but maybe they're actually addicted to it. What does that look like?
Yeah, so and that's really what I call it in the book, that perfectionism really is an addiction, and that struggle comes from the paradox of trying to live up or fulfill the addiction versus the struggle of trying to break free from the addiction.
Hmm.
And there's no program, there's no cure, there's no treatment, right? There's no 12-step program, there's no inpatient recovery centers for perfectionists. But it's as much an addiction as any other addiction that people have, whether that's substances or distraction. Some people are addicted to gaming or to certain things that they'll watch. Others are addicted to eating. Stress eating is in a sense an addiction.
Hmm.
So I really believe that personality trait, reinforced by your experience, puts you in a position where um, that need for things to be perfect becomes so strong that it becomes debilitating if you can't reach it, if you
Hmm.
can't accomplish it.
Wow. So I want to challenge some of our viewers right now. If you know that you either struggle with perfectionism, maybe you actually know. Joan says addicted to perfectionism, got a little tear coming down emoji. Why don't you just go ahead and let's embrace the steps forward. A part of getting unhackable is learning about the culprit of what's keeping you stuck, what's keeping you hacked in life, not being able to fulfill your purpose, being able to live out productivity, living with the margin to live and enjoy life. And so I want to challenge some of our viewers right now. Go ahead and comment. Just write perfectionism. Write write a write an emoji with a tear like Joan. I don't care. Just why don't we just have some conversation here about that? And I may even give you an opportunity here in just a little while, if we can make it work, for you to actually join our conversation with Jeff, and talk about overcoming this addiction. So let's keep going on the story now. So you began to discover the culprit of being addicted to perfectionism. What happened then?
Yeah. Well, I think really the thing that happened, at least at this point later in life, where it was uncovered that was the problem, was this long process of accepting it. And funny, I just saw a comment pop up. I thought it was OCD. Yeah,
Mm,
it is. I'm telling you, when you are addicted to perfectionism, you become obsessive compulsive, you become rigid and inflexible. Um, People don't want to work for you, family doesn't want to be around you. I mean, I used to go to the dishwasher after my kids loaded it, and if I would look in the dishwasher and see that maybe there were a couple things left in the sink that didn't fit, I could look at it and say, "Oh, if I rearrange this a little bit, I can fit those last two things in there," and I would reload the dishwasher.
wow.
Well, how do you think the kids reacted when they saw that happening?
Mm,
"Oh, yeah, he doesn't like the way I do it. Well, I just won't do it anymore."
right.
Hey, there you go. Great accomplishment, Dad. You got the kids to quit doing chores instead of get them to do it, right?
Wow.
So I went on this, multi-year journey of, I had these things I wanted to do, these goals I wanted to accomplish. I had a book in mind that I wanted to write, and I wasn't getting it done. And Joan, we're kindred spirits. Uh, so I I wasn't able to get these things done, and I was still holding myself back, and I had to start working on letting things go and allowing myself to be imperfect. And it's taken all that time. I mean, we're talking September of 2014, and where are we? We're in early
Wow.
2021.
Wow.
So it took me a few years to even start writing the book. It took me a couple of years to write it. I mean, if you can imagine a perfectionist writing a book about dealing with perfectionism, that was a struggle.
Wow. That is
So,
amazing.
so there's no cure. You don't just, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm still a perfectionist, but now I have that awareness to recognize it and to know when it doesn't have to be perfect and it is good enough and I can let it go. I didn't used to have that.
Wow. So let's talk about the structure of the book because there's a lot of people identifying. I've got sideways emojis. People are starting to get into the conversation. We identify. I identify. My wife and I actually we have a story of when we were first in our first few years of marriage. We actually didn't put anything in the living room because we wanted that perfect furniture set. And so there was nowhere for people to sit because we had to have a perfect set. So so it's amazing how perfectionism sounds. It's rational, it sounds right, but it robs so much of life. It robs so much of really the way you're supposed to live and to enjoy life. And I think that one of the most empowering quotes that I've ever heard was done is better than perfect. And so I want to hear about this tool that you've created for people because there's people right now, we can laugh about it, we can joke about it, but the reality of it is a lot of people are not achieving their life purpose and their life goals because they're enslaved, they're hacked by perfectionism. So tell us about your book, the tool that you've created to help people, because I want to get this into their hands and we want to make it available to them. And I'm going to pop back up how they can connect to you as well while you're talking. But just take us through just a few moments of, or however you want to, how much time you want to spend and build this structure for people. And what was this tool that you received to get free?
Yeah, that's a dangerous invitation, Tony. My wife will tell you, don't ever give Jeff the mic because he can talk. Um, so as I started thinking about the book and laying it out, it really kind of fell into three parts, right? The first part is I call it the making of the perfectionist, which is really kind of my story about how I became a perfectionist, the experiences I had that made me a perfectionist, the people in my life, and their role in that. And I will tell you that the people in my life that had a role in my becoming a perfectionist, not one of them ever demanded perfectionism, and that's kind of the oddity in the situation as I tell the stories about how I took the messages and the lessons that parents and teachers and coaches and people like that taught, and in my mind, I twisted those into something different than what they really were,
Hmm.
and turned them from powerful lessons on doing your best and being successful into if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. Um, and then I move into the middle part of the book, which I call living inside the paradox, which is all about life with perfectionism. How does it affect us? And I talk about things like procrastination
Hmm.
and fear of failure and imposter syndrome and all of those things we hear about all the time. But when you're a perfectionist, they seem to be amplified. Um, I'll tell you one of the quick stories I relate in the book, and I don't spend a lot of time on stories in the book. They're pretty short. I tell them, they make the point, and I move on.
Hmm.
But so I'm an engineer by education and experience,
Wow.
um, and I think there are certain careers that perfectionists are attracted to, right? Engineering, architecture, accounting, even medical professions, surgeons, careers where perfectionism is kind of highly regarded and even rewarded as a virtue. And so I tell a story about helping my dad out with a project. He had a business in downtown Phoenix, and he had a dirt parking lot, and the city wanted him to pave it. And so I drew up a little plan for him, and city was paving the street nearby. Contractor came in, paved his parking lot. Everything went off without a hitch. Beautiful. Life is great. Jeff, you did good. And then a little while later, he asked me to help him measure an open. He had an opening he wanted to put a custom roll-up door on, a big hangar bay type door. And so I went and I helped him with that, did all the measurements. He ordered the door. And when the door came in, it was 11 inches too narrow.
Wow.
What in the heck? So I started looking at what I had done, and the opening was 43 feet 2 inches, and I wrote 42 feet 3 inches. So I transposed the 2 and the 3.
Wow.
So my dad, being the non-perfectionist that he is, framed up a little sidewall on one side of the opening, put a couple of windows in there, had the door installed, and said, that actually turned out better because it would have been so dark in there, and now there's a little light coming in through these side lights.
Wow.
And all I heard in my mind for years after that was, "You idiot, you failure, you screwed up that door." So even my dad telling me, "Hey, this actually turned out better because of an unfortunate numbers got transposed."
Right.
I looked at it as just a colossal failure caused by my error. So,
Wow.
so you take those things. Was it a big deal? Could have been. Turned out not to be.
Right.
Nobody died. Nobody got hurt. I don't know, what did he spend? A couple $100 in materials to frame up the little thing. It was no big thing in the scheme of life, but to me, it was this horrific experience. So I talk about a lot of those different types of experiences and how they affect people. And then I go into the last part of the book, which is kind of accepting and overcoming the addiction and escaping the paradox. And I talk about ways to deal with your perfectionism. And I talk about things like, habit cultivation and how you create different habits and some of the tools that I used and some of the techniques that I used to do that. And so I walk through some of those different things and give some examples, again, of ways that I've learned to basically let things not be perfect and move on, recognizing that it's good enough. So.
And the last part of the book is you talking about the steps. If you were just to share, because we have different people that are relating, what would be a framework that you could give someone to say, hey, these are the steps you need to take to overcome being a perfectionist that robs you of life?
Yeah. So I think the first step is you have to acknowledge that perfectionism isn't really serving you. That was a big step for me because I always saw it as a virtue. And I don't believe that it is anymore. Now I've accepted that there are times where striving for something to be perfect is worthwhile, but don't let the need for it to become perfect prevent you from finishing or completing or moving forward with whatever it is you're doing. So that was the first step, is just that awareness to say, hey, perfectionism is not the virtue that it seems to be. And I need to accept that imperfection. The second thing I would say is that you need to cultivate this almost a game plan for avoiding that trap of perfectionism, right?
Mm.
So whether it's journaling, daily planner, affirmations, you pick you pick the one that works for you. Something different works for everyone, right?
Right, right.
And I talk about that in there. So my wife and I have both made a commitment to getting healthier, and so we've lost a lot of weight.
Awesome.
So I've dropped nearly 120 pounds, and I've tried to lose weight before. I've done diets, I've done Weight Watchers, I've done all kinds of different things, and I've lost weight, but I've never kept it off.
Mm.
So now we found an approach that worked for us, lost the weight, and I've kept it off for almost a year now, which is just a start, but it's a great start.
That's awesome.
So I tell people there's always something that works for everyone. You just have to find the approach that works for you. With me in perfectionism, the first thing was just going back into that process of problem solving. What am I trying to accomplish here? And does it have to be perfect, or is there some level of excellence less than perfect that's good
Mm.
enough? And defining that. And then I'm a structure person. So if anybody's familiar with DISC, I am a hard C. Hard C.
Gotcha.
Welcome to the engineers of the world, right?
Right.
So I like structure and plan, and so I've experimented with different planners over the years, trying to find the ones that would work for me, and never found one. I finally found a planner that I like, and it's brain typed. It's called the Evo planner. Put in a pitch for EVO, and they have 4 different planners. It's the same thing, but they have different page layouts, different terminology, different appearances. And you take an assessment that's similar to like taking a DISC assessment, and it matches to the way you think and your kind of your personality type, and matches you to the planner type that you'll relate to.
Awesome.
And so that's worked for me. I've now found a planner that combines a little bit of journaling, because I'm not a big journaler. It combines a piece of gratitude, a piece of goal setting, with a little daily action list, and all those components work for me, and they kept me on track, and they helped me to um, avoid that procrastination trap, right? Because that's, for perfectionists, procrastination is a huge issue.
Awesome.
So those are a couple of the things I've done, but I think the biggest one, for me anyway, as a perfectionist, is just being able to forgive myself
Mm.
and forgive others
Wow.
when it's not perfect. And I don't mean forgive in a, oh, I forgive you for wronging me sort of thing. It's more of a just, giving yourself some grace.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. The employee doesn't have to do it perfectly for it to be done well. The son or daughter doesn't have to do it perfectly for it to be done well.
Mm.
Right. So just that whole idea of giving some grace and allowing things to not be perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was huge.
That is awesome. So what I've got here is that you, number one is to acknowledge that there's a issue, acknowledge that perfectionism is working against you. Secondly is to identify a plan, to create a plan that works for you. And then the third one is not requiring perfection from the plan, right? So that you
Hmm.
are able to forgive yourself, forgiving others. And so those are 3 powerful steps. I just want to look on here to see if you guys have any questions for Jeff. you can put those in the comments there. And if you want to come on the screen, I even have an ability to bring people on. And if you have a question, you want to come on, just say, bring me on. I'll take a risk and bring you on here. And so I'm going to put in here a link on getting the Perfection Paradox from Jeff Kramer. Also, I'm going to pop in here where you can get more information about Jeff. I've been showing it on the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and pop them in the comments for you guys just to be able to link to. Do encourage you to go over and get his book and begin this journey of living life to the full. When we're talking about Unhackable, the book that Carrie has written right here, it's really a powerful tool. And he deals with this culprit that and we all have different culprits, right? We all have different things that hinder us from truly being able to fulfill our purpose and be able to live the life that we are supposed to live, that we are created to live. And so he has these four things as far as being productive, being able to live life with margin, being able to live life with fulfillment. And when we begin to discover these aspects of stepping out of those patterns, stepping out of those hacks in life, we become unhackable. And that's really what this book club is about. I want to invite you to be a part of the book club, and it's called Get Unhackable Book Club. You can join. It's not too late to join. It doesn't cost anything to join. And so I'm going to put that link there as well. If you want to pick up this copy of Unhackable as well, I've actually bought this for you. All you have to do is pay shipping and handling. And so I'm going to pop that in there as well. And there's one last thing that I want to encourage our viewers to do if you haven't already, and that is to take the Unhackable assessments. That is a great tool. Again, all of these resources are free for you. Now, Jeff's book is not free, but Unhackable, we can send that out to you just by paying shipping and handling. But these assessments are free, and we want to be able to get those things into you just so you can become aware. Awareness is the key to freedom. Awareness, as Jesus says, when you know the truth will make you free. And becoming aware of these things really helps us begin to move forward in life. And that's really what we have for you. Jeff, are there any other resources or anything else that you want to share with the viewers before we finish today?
Well, Tony, I think I love what you just said, because one of the things that I say is be freed by your flaws and escape to excellence.
That's great. Awesome.
So when you recognize that you're imperfect, you become free of that paradox of perfection. So yeah, so if you want to check it out, here's the book, Perfection Paradox. I saw the link go up, perfectionparadoxbook.com. Love to have you drop by. Love to hear what you think. And if you want any evidence at all of my ability to escape the need to be perfect, visit jeffreykramer.com, because it's not complete yet, but it's live. So it's good enough. It's got some basic stuff up there, but there's a lot more coming to that site for sure. But we got it out there, and that's what counted, right? It was good enough. So
that's awesome.
You'll have to tell Kerry that I'm still using the "good is good enough" phrase. He'll be a proud parent when he hears that. So.
That is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and pop that in here. Good is good enough.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
That was Kerry's challenge to me back in late 2014. Was he wanted me to post every day when I had let something be good enough.
Wow.
And so that was the phrase that we use to work on learning how to let things go. So, no, I'd love to. Anyone who wants to connect, reach out on Facebook or LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you there, or shoot me a message. Jeff at jeffreykramer.com. Happy to get back to you. And anyone who knows a perfectionist, loves a perfectionist, is a perfectionist, happy to be a resource.
Excellent. Well, guys, I want to encourage you to do one more thing before we finish up here, and that is you've heard the conversation. You know somebody that is dealing with this, that they weren't on this stream. Go ahead, even at the end, go ahead and tag somebody, share and like it, and let's get this message in front of them. You never know. You could change their life forever. You could have someone like Jeff who has discovered this freedom and loses 120 pounds and his life has changed. You might have someone like me that doesn't have anywhere to sit because of perfectionism. You might have someone else that really is on the brink of suicide because of this concept that life has to be perfect. And you might literally free them to be able to enjoy the life they were created to live. And so do me a favor, make one last comment and write, good is good enough. Let's get that message out there. Jeff, thank you so much for taking some time with me. And I appreciate you sharing your journey with our viewers. And if I can ever serve you, let me know.
Thank you so much, Tony. I enjoyed being here and appreciate the invitation. Thank
All
you.
right. Blessings. Goodbye, everybody. Have an awesome